The webinar should run for about 20 minutes and we'll be looking at keyboard shortcuts, hiding non-important elements of the editor, shortcuts when using images, and shortcuts when using text. All right, let's get started. So first of all, let's look at keyboard shortcuts. We have covered this before in previous webinars. However, I can't stress enough how critical they are in saving time when putting together your project. By now, you probably know the most common shortcuts such as copying and pasting, but let's have a look at some less well-known keyboard shortcuts. First is the maximum and minimum zoom shortcut. So when you hold down the Control key on your keyboard, or if you're on a Mac, the Command key, you can click plus and minus to gradually zoom in or zoom out. But if you want to jump straight to the maximum zoom possible, you can press the Control Shift plus key all at the same time, those three keys. On a Mac, it is Command Alt plus or Command Option plus is the other name for it. So what that does is rather than having to gradually zoom in, it saves you time with lots of clicks and it takes you to the maximum zoom. This is really useful if you want to read your text and just check for spelling. To zoom all the way back out, use Control Shift and the minus key, or on a Mac, Command Alt and the minus key. I'll show you all this a bit later on. You can eliminate several clicks when you're trying to frame a cropped photo. The long way of doing this is to double click on the image and then click and drag your image around the frame and then apply changes. The shortcut is holding down the Alt key on your keyboard or the Option key on a Mac. When you hold down this key, you can click and drag your image to choose which part of your image you want to appear, like in the example on this slide. Don't worry, I'm going to show you all of these things, how to do them in the editor at the end. Another keyboard shortcut is using the Shift key. It does two things. First, it allows you to highlight more than one photo at a time. So, for example, if you want to place a border around two photos on your page, rather than doing each one separately, you can highlight both photos and do them together. So you click on one photo and it'll have the blue dots around the edges. Then hold Shift and click on the other photo. Both photos will then have the blue dots around them and it means they're both highlighted. Then any changes that you apply, such as adding a border or drop shadow, whatever you do, will apply to both photos. You can use this Shift key to highlight as many photos on the page that you're working on so that anything you apply will apply to all those photos. The other thing that Shift does is it constrains proportions when making a photo larger or smaller, which is what's happening on this page, on this slide right now. So it stops the editor from cropping your photo as you're changing the size. And to do that, you click on the photo to highlight it, hold down the Shift key while you're dragging one of the blue dots to make the photo bigger or smaller. And that way so if it's a square photo, it'll keep it a square photo. If it's a landscape photo, it'll keep it landscape, it won't crop it. Next, we're looking at how we can hide non-important elements while working on a project. If you've made photo books in the editor before, then you're sure to be familiar with the warning text that we put on the cover of your photo book. The text only appears in the editor and won't be printed. It tells you where the fold area on the cover is and to place important items away from the red dotted line. It also tells you which is the back cover and which is the front cover. So if you're familiar with these warnings, then you can actually hide them by going to the top menu bar and selecting View, then click on Hide Non-Printable Items. This will make the text disappear, as you'll see now. This means you now have a clear view of your cover design without any distractions. You can also hide certain parts of the editor interface when you're working on your project. If you're like me and you want zero distractions when creating your design, then head to the top menu bar again, and under the View menu, you'll find the option to hide certain panels of the editor. In this example on the screen, I'm hiding the inspector. That's this pale blue column on the right-hand side, which is here. So that makes your editing space a bit bigger. It may not work for you, so if you use that inspector panel quite a lot, then it's probably not going to help you. But you can also hide other parts of the screen. So for example, you can hide the page previews at the top if you don't need to use those, or the library down the bottom of the screen. Okay, next let's look at shortcuts when using images. The first feature is the group function. And as the name suggests, it allows you to group multiple items together. So this is handy when you have a lot of items on your page and you might want to move them all as a group. So you select each of the images you want to group so that they're all highlighted by using the Shift key. Then right-click to show the drop-down menu and select Group. Now you'll only have to click once to move all four of the images or all the images that you have on the page. Again, I'll demonstrate this a bit later on. The next feature is locking items on a page. It's not an often used feature, so don't worry too much about it, but in certain circumstances, it can be useful. So mainly if you have a lot of elements on your page, say you have 10 photos and 4 text boxes, and you might just want to select the text boxes. Well, you can right-click on the images and select all the images, and then right-click and say Lock, and that way they'll be unselectable and they won't be able to move on the page. Then all you have to do is press Control A or Command A, which highlights all your text boxes, and you can do what you want with your text boxes. Don't stress too much about this one. It's not a big thing. Lastly, I have one kind of secret feature for text in the editor. We've covered this feature before in previous webinars, but it is truly a huge time saver. So if you're working with text in the editor, instead of having to select the size, the font, and the color every time you start a new text box, you can create one text box first and double click into it to define the default text style you want. So choose your font, choose your size, choose your color, and then after typing some text, right click while you're still inside the text box. It'll bring up a drop down menu. You can select use current style as default text style. Then every time you add a new text box, it will automatically have your predefined text style. Alrighty, now let's get to the fun bit and show you how to do some of these things. So I'm going to open up the editor. So this is our download editor. I have already opened a project. I've put a photo on the cover taken by my husband recently in Port Fairy. So the first thing I'll just quickly show you while we're on this page how to hide non-printable items. So sometimes it's annoying if you want to put text and these things are all in your way. So as long as you know where the folding area is and you know it's a back and front cover, you can click on the View menu and click on Hide Non-Printable Items. Now I can see my whole cover and it helps me to decide where I want to put my text. That's really useful. And while we're at it, also if you click on the View menu, you'll see that you have the options to hide inspector, hide library, page previews, pictures, toolbar. The one I find, because I often use some of these features, so I don't want to hide them, the one I find useful to hide is the page previews, which is at the top. And see how much extra space I now have on my of editing, and it makes it much easier to view text and look closer up on my images. If I do want to get to the next page, I can still use the next page button. If you decide you do want your page previews back, click on View and Show Page Previews, and they're back. So it's not a huge deal. Okay, now I'll just open up a blank page here. So I want to show you, we'll add some photos to the page first. I'll choose a template. I've got quite a nice idea about doing some panels for I've got this beautiful lighthouse picture here, and I thought it might be fun to display it rather than as one photo in 3 separate panels. So I'm going to drag that photo onto each of the panels, but obviously I don't want to show this bit of the photo on all of them. So what I want to do is choose which part of the photo to show. Now the slow way to do it is to double click on the photo, brings up the cropping screen, and I can choose which bit of the photo I want to display. The easier way to do it is, as I said before, hold down the Alt key. And while I'm holding Alt, I can just drag my mouse and decide which part of the photo I want to show. So if I do the same on the next screen, I'm not exactly sure where it starts and finishes, but I'm basically trying to make it look like it's a full, like the whole photo, but in 3 separate panels. I'm quite happy with that, how that looks. That's just an interesting way to display something, but it shows you how to use that Alt key to select which part of the photo you're showing. Now let's add some text. So we'll add a text box. I'm just going to make it a bit smaller, and we'll put it at the top of the page here. So to add text, we'll double click into it, and we want to choose a default text style for all my text in the book. I actually quite like Abriel Fatface just because of the name it is. So I'm going to choose that. I want to make my font size 16, and let's choose a color. I'm just going to go other and choose a color from the spectrum. We'll just use a purple color and click OK. So I've defined here what text what color, size, and font I'm going to use. So now if I start typing, Port Fairy Lighthouse, oops. If I want to use that same font size, etc., for all my captions on my photos, just right click while I'm still in the text box and choose Use Current Style as default text style. That way, the next time I add a text box, so I'll just add another one, I'll just pop it over here. If I start typing, I've got the same font, same size, etc. Makes it easier. I'll just delete that. Now, the writing's a bit small to see. It will actually appear quite large when it's printed, but so that I can zoom in on if I want to zoom in. If I just want to zoom in slowly on the page, I press Control and the plus key, and you see it's starting to zoom in. But if I want to zoom in to the maximum zoom, I hold down Control, Shift, and plus, and it's zoomed right in on the page for me. And now I can quite clearly read my text and make sure that it's okay. If I want to zoom right out again, I press Control, Shift, and the minus key, and out it goes. The other way, you can do this from the View menu as well, maximum zoom. So there's a couple of ways to do that. All right, so that's that covered. Next, let's look at using the Shift key, which I mentioned before. So we're going to pop some photos on the page. Just pop this one, this one, this one, and this one. Now, at the moment, only one of them's highlighted, this one with the blue dots around it. I want to highlight all of them so that I can change all of them at the same time. So hold down the Shift key, click on each of the other photos, and they're all got blue dots around the edges now. So anything I do to them will do to all of them. The first thing I want to do is add a border. So on the right hand side, we click on border, and I'll just make it a bit thicker so you can see it. I've just added a border to all 4 photos, and it's going to be the identical border on all of them. I also want to make them larger. So as I said before, if you hold down the Shift key while making a photo larger, so just move one of the blue dots, not only does it make all 4 of them larger, but it also constrains the proportions. So it keeps them landscape. It doesn't change, it keeps the whole photo in there. If I don't hold down Shift and I change the size, it starts to, like, it might change it to square, or it might not do what I want it to do. So holding down Shift will keep the same proportions. Okay, that's the Shift key. Next, let's look at grouping photos. So let's say, for example, I choose to put these photos, we'll use a page style. So I'll pop them into this page style here. But I decided I don't want them right at the top of the page. I want them in the middle of the page. So we need to highlight them all. So we'll hold down Shift, click on each one so they're all highlighted. Then I right click and say group. So now if I move them, it'll move all 4 of them together as a group. And it also means if I want to center them, so if I want to center them in the middle of the page, I right click and say align vertical page center. It will align all 4 of them in the center of the page. If they were separate images, it would be a bit trickier to do that. So it's quite useful. You can also ungroup them by right clicking and ungroup. I'm not going to show you the lock function because I really don't think that you're likely to use that, but if you do need help with that, you can always let us know. I think that's all that I need to show you. So next, if you have any questions, now's a good time to ask them. I'm just going to do a quick sum up of what we've talked about, and then we'll look at questions and finish up. So back to my slideshow. Just a quick reminder. So learn the editor keyboard shortcuts because they can be really useful, especially that zooming in and zooming out, copying and pasting, those sort of things are really useful. Hide non-important elements if you want to have a distraction-free experience, especially on the cover, it's quite useful. Group or lock items on the page, but just do it if you need to. It can be useful to group items sometimes. And don't forget, if you're going to be doing a lot of text, set a default text style. It's going to save you a lot of time there. Okay, give me 1 minute. I'll just check if we have any questions. Okay, so Mark's asked, can you apply a new text style to a series of text boxes within one page? No, I don't believe you can. And I'm just going to double check that, but oops, sorry. If I can get back to my, yep, I am back here. No, because the only way to do it, if you add a text box to the page, if you say add 2 text boxes, no, you can't, because you have to double click into the text box to be able to do it. So you really need to do it before you, like you can't do it after, halfway through your project. If you've already started, you need to do it right at the beginning. All right. Let's go back to just finish off quickly. I'm sorry, just a reminder that you're always welcome to call our customer service team. We're here to help with any queries or issues. We are here Monday to Friday, 9 till 5 p.m. Melbourne time. You can contact us by phone, email, or live chat as per the details on the screen right now.